Virgo, governed by Mercury, the swift-footed messenger of the gods, stands at the sixth station of the Zodiac with an aura of divine purpose and relentless refinement. Virgo is the sacred alchemist, the priestess of detail, the master of precision. This earth sign, mutable and adaptable, is tethered to a deep sense of duty, an inner calling to cleanse, perfect, and elevate. The virgin archetype, long misunderstood as mere chastity, is in truth a symbol of wholeness unto oneself, a being sovereign, meticulous, and unwavering in principle. Yet, within this sacred architecture lie shadows, and it is in the shadow where the warnings reside, silent but potent. Virgo's mind is a labyrinth of logic and analysis, always dissecting, always improving. The ability to see the cracks in the façade is a rare gift, but if left unchecked, it becomes a curse. The Virgoan eye, trained to perceive imperfection, may become consumed by it. This is where the descent begins, not in a grand collapse, but in a slow erosion of peace. The constant internal voice demanding flawlessness can turn into an unyielding tyrant, and the endless pursuit of a higher standard can morph into a prison of self-criticism and judgment. This is no ordinary voice. It is ancient, it is karmic, and it speaks not only of personal failings but of collective responsibility, whispering that all must be fixed, that rest is earned only through endless service. When Virgo turns this razor-sharp lens inward, the damage is not merely psychological, it is spiritual. The soul begins to fracture under the weight of impossible standards. You may find yourself accomplishing more than anyone around you, yet feeling it is never enough. The Virgo shadow convinces you that love must be earned, that your worth is conditional upon utility. This insidious belief erodes joy, turning achievement into mere obligation. The epic hero within Virgo is not meant to be a martyr, but a guide. But when this inner alchemy is misdirected, the healer becomes the wounded one who cannot stop picking at their own scars. Equally dangerous is the compulsion to control, not out of tyranny, but out of fear. Virgo seeks order not for power, but for sanctuary. Chaos threatens the Virgo psyche like a storm at sea. It muddles clarity and threatens the sacred structure that Virgo has built to feel safe. But this fear-driven control can spill into relationships, into work, into life itself. The desire to help can become suffocating. Advice becomes criticism. Support becomes micromanagement. The very love Virgo tries to offer is misread, misunderstood, and eventually rejected, leaving Virgo wounded and retreating deeper into solitude, confused as to why their efforts go unnoticed or unappreciated. Virgo's loyalty is unmatched, forged in the fires of devotion and maintained through tireless service. But when betrayed, the Virgo heart doesn't explode, it calcifies. The pain is internalized, analyzed, replayed, until it becomes an intellectual artifact of emotional anguish. The danger here lies in detachment masquerading as strength. Virgo may become emotionally elusive, hiding behind duties and tasks, suppressing vulnerability in favor of productivity. Over time, this self-denial can hollow out the spirit, leaving a shell of competence without connection. The mind remains sharp, but the heart starves. Virgo is also susceptible to burnout, the soul erosion that comes from always giving, always fixing, always tending. Because Virgo rarely complains, the world doesn't see the weight they carry. Their labor is quiet, their sacrifice is invisible, and their needs unspoken. Over time, this can lead to bitterness, resentment, and a sense of invisibility. The danger is not in exhaustion alone, but in the creeping belief that no one else can be trusted to do it right. Virgo then becomes isolated in their excellence, imprisoned by their reliability. The warning is not a condemnation, it is a prophecy, one that speaks of transformation. The Virgo path is not to destroy oneself in service of the world, but to become a sacred vessel through which purity, wisdom, and healing can flow. When Virgo learns to soften the internal critic, to embrace imperfection as part of divine design, they begin to embody their highest calling, not as a servant of flawlessness, but as a guardian of sacred wholeness. The Virgo myth is epic because it demands balance in paradox. To surrender control while staying grounded, to forgive flaws without abandoning standards, to serve without losing the self. It is a path that requires both humility and valor, discernment and compassion. The Virgo who masters their inner terrain becomes a force of alchemical magic, a sage, a healer, a silent architect of cosmic order. Beware the shadow, but do not fear it. The Virgo darkness is a crucible, not a curse. Within it lies the power to transmute judgment into wisdom, perfectionism into excellence, and criticism into clarity. Virgo was never meant to be destroyed by their gifts. They were meant to refine them into light. The battle is internal, but the victory resounds across lifetimes. This is the epic of Virgo, not in being flawless, but in daring to grow beyond the edge of reason and return bearing the gold of grace. The Virgo archetype is inseparable from the sacred union between the material and the divine. Often mistaken as a mere analyst or technician of life, Virgo holds within its essence a cosmic contract, to weave spirit into matter, to sanctify the everyday, to honor the divine through discipline. But this mission is not without peril. The Virgo soul comes into this world seated with a longing for order in a realm defined by entropy. The challenge is not merely to organize, but to find divinity in disorder, to be the calm eye in the storm, not the hand that futilely tries to push the storm away. One underexplored dimension of Virgo's peril lies in their relationship with time. Governed by Mercury, Virgo operates at a high cognitive frequency, always evaluating, forecasting, managing, preparing. This acute awareness of time can become a double-edged sword. Virgo sees time as currency, something to be budgeted and optimized. While others may drift, Virgo sharpens their days into tools. But this mastery can become a trap. There is a danger in becoming a servant to schedules, in viewing spontaneity as waste, in fearing the blank space on a calendar. The life that becomes too managed loses its breath, and Virgo may find themselves suffocating in their own system, unable to let time simply pass without purpose. Connected to this is the tendency toward invisibility, not of presence, but of need. Virgo often becomes what others require, the assistant, the organizer, the fixer. They are frequently the unsung heroes, the quiet architects of success for those around them. Yet this ability to adapt, to remain in the background, to support without applause, can become a wound when it denies the Virgo their own center stage. There is nobility in humility, but if unchecked, it turns into erasure. Virgo must battle the temptation to derive identity solely through usefulness, lest they forget their intrinsic worth that exists beyond doing. The epic of Virgo includes reclaiming their own space in the spotlight, not to steal glory, but to honor their own sacred contribution. The mind of Virgo is a sanctuary of refinement, but in its shadow it becomes a courtroom. Here, the judge never leaves the bench and the defendant is always the self. Virgo's capacity for guilt is profound, not the dramatic guilt of moral sin, but the quiet guilt of never doing enough, never knowing enough, never being fully prepared. This internal pressure is often invisible to the world, but it is relentless. It saps joy, diminishes rest, and turns every pause into a potential failure. Virgo must learn the heroism of stillness. The act of doing nothing, for Virgo, is not laziness but a revolution. The mind must be given its own pasture, a place where thought is not a blade but a feather. Virgo's connection to the body is also a terrain of both mastery and danger. As an earth sign, Virgo often has an intimate relationship with physical health, nutrition, and daily rituals. This can be a profound source of empowerment. Yet it can also become a form of hypervigilance, a belief that purity of body is synonymous with purity of soul. The body then becomes a battlefield. Obsession with diet, exercise, or routine can lead to control rather than care, rigidity rather than reverence. Virgo must learn that healing is not always linear, that health is not always measurable, and that the body, like life, is sacred even when imperfect. The emotional realm is often where Virgo walks cautiously, if not reluctantly. Emotions are messy, unpredictable, unquantifiable, the very antithesis of Virgo's preference for clarity and logic. But the soul of Virgo is deeply feeling, despite appearances. Their love is profound, but often filtered through practicality and protection. The danger here is emotional repression, not because Virgo does not feel, but because they fear the lack of control that feeling implies. This detachment, though protective, can lead to a profound sense of loneliness. Virgo may find themselves surrounded by people yet emotionally exiled, longing for connection but unable to surrender into its chaos. The path forward is not to dissect emotion, but to inhabit it, to feel without fixing. Another shadowed gift is Virgo's loyalty to systems and traditions. While often progressive in intellect, Virgo can become rigid in method. They may resist new ways if those ways appear chaotic or inefficient. This attachment to the right way can hinder growth. Innovation often requires disruption. Virgo must learn to balance their respect for structure with the courage to dismantle what no longer serves. This is where Virgo transcends the role of the maintainer and becomes the evolutionary architect, one who refines not just what exists but what is possible. Virgo's mythology is entwined with Demeter and Astrea, goddesses of harvest and justice, respectively. From Demeter, Virgo inherits the gift of nurturing cycles, of creating abundance through care. But when her daughter Persephone is taken, Demeter's grief scorches the earth. Here lies another lesson. When Virgo's creations are harmed or lost, the wound reverberates through all aspects of their being. They must learn to grieve without burning everything down. From Astrea, Virgo inherits the dream of a just, harmonious world. But when that world proves unjust, Virgo must resist the impulse to retreat forever into the heavens of detachment or the caverns of despair. The epic task is to stay, to continue refining even in imperfection. Virgo's greatness does not lie in transcending the human, but in ennobling it. Their power is not loud, but seismic. They shift the world not through spectacle, but through sustained, intentional change. Virgo is the pilgrim of the Zodiac, the one who walks the long path not for glory, but for truth. And yet, they must remember they are allowed joy, allowed rest, allowed imperfection. The Virgo soul was not sent here to be consumed by their own brilliance, but to illuminate the path for others, not as a martyr, but as a guide. To walk the Virgo path is to hold a sword in one hand and a lantern in the other, to cut away illusion and to light the way towards something better. It is a sacred path, yes, but it is also a heavy one. And the only way to carry that weight is to remember. Even the most polished diamond was once just a piece of carbon that dared to endure. The Virgo archetype is a living testament to the silent revolution, the kind that transforms the world not through upheaval, but through meticulous devotion to what is good, functional, and quietly holy. Yet what remains often overlooked is Virgo's deep connection to sacred service, not just as a mundane task, but as a spiritual initiation. Virgo is not simply the worker or helper. It is the sacred steward, the priest or priestess of the earth temple, whose labor is laced with intention. Virgo is where ritual becomes real, where the sacred is not hidden in the heavens but found in the folds of a clean linen sheet, in the symmetry of a healed wound, in the unglamorous but vital tending of what must endure. In this capacity, Virgo's path echoes the archetype of the sacred devotee, whose power lies in constancy, not conquest. But herein lies a hidden danger, the over-identification with service as self-definition. The Virgo soul may unconsciously align their worth with how much they give, how well they maintain, how skillfully they keep chaos at bay. In doing so, they become susceptible to spiritual depletion. Their own temple becomes neglected while they polish the altars of others. The irony is profound. Virgo, the healer of the Zodiac, must learn to heal the self first, to nourish the giver as much as the given. This is not selfishness, it is preservation of sacred flame. The lamp must remain lit, not just for others, but so Virgo does not wander in darkness while holding light for the world. Another scarcely touched facet of Virgo's mythos is their link to ancestral memory. Virgo governs the intestines, the part of the body where nutrients are absorbed, toxins are separated, and survival depends upon discernment. In a symbolic sense, Virgo governs what we carry from the past, what is digested and what is expelled. This makes Virgo a vessel of ancestral wisdom, a keeper of lineages, a bearer of generational responsibility. Virgo may feel compelled to fix what others before them could not. Family systems, inherited wounds, legacies of silence. This pressure can be immense. Virgo is often the one who breaks patterns, who brings logic into generational madness, who names what has been long buried. But this karmic task can weigh heavily if Virgo does not recognize that some battles are not theirs to finish, only to witness and gently reroute. The epic here is not only in transformation, but in the brave acknowledgement of limits. Closely tied to this is Virgo's unique relationship to language. As Mercury's second manifestation, after Gemini, Virgo wields communication not for breadth, but for depth. Where Gemini explores, Virgo refines. Virgo does not merely speak, they edit. They do not simply write, they encode clarity. Words for Virgo are spells, crafted with intention, honed with discernment. But this gift can be sharpened into a weapon, often self-directed. Virgo's inner dialogue can become cutting, surgical, merciless. They can speak to themselves in tones they would never use with others. The healing lies not only in what Virgo says but in how they say it, to others and especially to the self. Learning the language of gentleness is not antithetical to Virgo's truth-seeking. It is the evolution of it. There is also a mystical current that runs through Virgo's core, often buried beneath their practicality. Virgo is not typically seen as mystical, but this is a misunderstanding. The Virgo mysticism is not ethereal or visionary, it is incarnational. It finds divinity in systems, spirit in repetition, God in the granular. Where Pisces, its opposite sign, dissolves into the divine, Virgo brings the divine into focus, into lists, into tangible expression. Virgo sanctifies the spreadsheet, the breath, the ritual of morning tea. They do not need to transcend to touch the sacred, they anchor it here. But if they forget this, if they see their earthly duties as inferior to some imagined spiritual ideal, they disconnect from their own magic. The Virgo mystic must reclaim the altar of the ordinary, knowing it is no less divine than any celestial realm. Moreover, Virgo holds an evolutionary role in the zodiac wheel. It follows Leo, the sovereign, the self-expressing soul. After the fire of selfhood comes the earth of refinement. Virgo takes the raw, radiant gold of Leo and purifies it. This is why Virgo is often seen in service to others. It is the natural step after personal power, to learn how to wield it for something greater than the self. But this sequence can become twisted if Virgo believes they must erase their light to be useful. In truth, Virgo must learn to embody their sovereignty through service, not at the cost of it. The Virgo path is to wield power not with grandeur, but with grace. To lead without demanding, to shine without shouting. Even the perfectionism so often associated with Virgo contains misunderstood wisdom. It is not rooted in arrogance, but in vision. Virgo sees what is possible and feels the weight of what is not yet. They are haunted not by flaws, but by potential unrealized. This sensitivity to the gap between what is and what could be is a sacred compass. The danger is not in having the vision. It is in believing that the gap must be closed alone, immediately, or at the expense of peace. Virgo must learn to hold space for imperfection while still honoring the dream. This is the essence of spiritual maturity. To see clearly, act wisely, and rest often. There is epic courage in Virgo's restraint. In a world obsessed with expansion, Virgo is the sign that knows the value of contraction. To prune, to pause, to remove what is not essential. Virgo teaches that evolution is not always growth. It is sometimes simplification. This requires immense strength. To say no, to choose quality over quantity, to invest in depth rather than breadth. This is the quiet rebellion of Virgo, the refusal to be distracted by the grandiose, the insistence on the meaningful. And finally, there is Virgo's role in collective healing. As the sign of harvest, Virgo is inherently tied to cycles of growth, decay, integration. In times of collapse, Virgo rises. When systems fail, Virgo builds anew, not from ideology, but from lived wisdom. In a collapsing world, Virgo is the restoration crew, the humble architect of rebirth. They are not the revolutionary who burns the palace, They are the ones who sift through the ashes and plant gardens in the rubble. To be Virgo is to walk the path of sacred pragmatism, to hold high ideals yet stay rooted in soil, to dream with precision, to labor with love. Virgo is the priest of reality, the guardian of form, the humble immortal whose greatness is not measured in thunder, but in the quiet hum of a life well tended. Their legend is not told in war songs, but in the flourishing of all that survives because they cared. Their epic is written in ink invisible to the eyes of the impatient, yet eternal to the eyes of those who see with soul. The Virgo path is often traveled in silence, not because the Virgo soul has nothing to say, but because the weight of knowing is profound, and the words are chosen with the precision of one who understands the cost of every syllable. Beneath the sign's quiet, composed exterior pulses a current of almost unbearable awareness. Virgo is not just observant. It is awake, attuned to the subtle frequencies of dissonance, misalignment, and disharmony in a world that too often exalts spectacle over substance. This hyper-awareness, when not anchored in compassion, becomes a vortex. It can pull Virgo into paralysis, into overthinking, into the endless maze of, what more can I do? The unspoken burden here is the Virgo belief that if only they worked harder, thought longer, refined more thoroughly, then everything within and around them could finally come into harmony. But the world is not a machine to be optimized. It is a garden to be cultivated with cycles of wildness and rest. Virgo must learn to coexist with mystery, to trust in seeds buried where no logic can yet explain their bloom. There is another dimension of Virgo that stretches beyond its association with service or intellect. Virgo is deeply initiatory. It governs the rites of passage we rarely recognize. The transition from youth to responsibility, from chaos to clarity, from potential to purpose. Virgo is the sacred threshold where innocence meets accountability. And in this crucible, the Virgo soul becomes tempered not by external acclaim, but by internal alignment. This is a sacred labor that is often unseen, and that very invisibility is part of its trial. The Virgo journey demands mastery without applause, transformation without spectacle, and devotion without audience. But it is precisely this inner sanctity that gives Virgo its spiritual gravitas. This is where the epic lies, not in external conquest, but in the disciplined becoming of one who has refused to abandon their integrity, even in the face of exhaustion, rejection, or futility. One of the least explored yet deeply potent forces within Virgo is its relationship to sacred grief. Unlike water signs, who express sorrow through emotional flood, Virgo processes pain like an alchemist, quietly, carefully, internally. Virgo grief is not loud. It is systematic. It hides in routines, in small corrections, in the pursuit of order in a life that has been ruptured. But this grief holds a divine power. Virgo teaches that mourning can be a form of prayer, that putting the world back together piece by piece, after it has broken, is not denial, it is resurrection. Virgo is the sign that gathers the fragments and weaves them into wholeness. The sacred healer within Virgo does not bypass pain. It learns how to coexist with it, how to hold it gently, how to integrate it into something useful. This is grief as grace, loss as a teacher, sorrow as a shaping force. Virgo also possesses an understated sensuality, often overlooked, yet essential to their embodiment. As an earth sign, Virgo is deeply connected to the physical world, but unlike Taurus, which revels in comfort, or Capricorn, which wields physicality for conquest, Virgo refines the body into a vessel of clarity. This relationship to the physical can become distorted when Virgo feels shame or pressure to constantly improve. But in its healthy state, Virgo embodies sacred embodiment, ritualized movement, intentional touch, reverence for the temple of the body. This physical discipline is not asceticism. It is devotion. It is the recognition that the soul is not separate from the body but housed within it. The Virgo path asks one to live in their body as though it were a sacred library, tended, honored, and infused with meaning. The Virgo capacity for solitude is another underappreciated strength that hides danger within its gifts. Unlike the lonely isolation of those disconnected, Virgo's solitude is chosen, a forge for thought, a sanctuary of synthesis. Virgo needs solitude not to escape the world, but to translate it, to distill experience into understanding. Yet the danger lies in staying too long in this inner cloister. The Virgo soul can become so accustomed to self-reliance, so practiced in emotional minimalism, that it forgets the healing that comes from letting others witness their raw, unfinished, unrefined self. To reveal the unedited self to another is, for Virgo, an act of supreme courage. And yet, it is necessary. Not all healing comes from control. Some of the most profound restoration comes from being seen, even in imperfection. Virgo's relationship to justice is also deeply embedded in its archetype, though it manifests not through dramatic upheaval, but through quiet refusal. Virgo is inherently moral, not in the sense of rigid rules, but in a deep, instinctive alignment with fairness, decency, and right action. This gives Virgo a revolutionary edge, subtle but unyielding. They do not need to shout to defy injustice. They dismantle corruption through refusal to participate in it. They question systems not with rage, but with results. Virgo knows that the most enduring revolution is not always waged in the streets, but in kitchens, clinics, classrooms, spreadsheets, and syllabi. The Virgo hero is the reformer disguised as a bureaucrat, the quiet radical who refuses to allow dysfunction to pass unnoticed. They are the whisper of a new world embedded in the brokenness of the old one. And there is magic in the mundane that only Virgo can teach. A magic not made of fantasy, but of function. The ability to transform an ordinary act into an expression of reverence. Virgo teaches that discipline is not suppression, it is self-respect. That a clean space can be an invocation. That a carefully written message can be a love letter. That attending to details is not small-minded but soul-minded. This ability to infuse daily life with purpose and grace is a spiritual practice in itself. It is an art of living that restores dignity to the overlooked, that brings sacredness to repetition. Virgo does not need grandeur to create magic. They summon it through presence. Ultimately, Virgo's epic is the story of sacred responsibility. Responsibility not just to others, but to the soul's calling. To become a living embodiment of wisdom. To refine the raw, to improve the broken, to uplift the ordinary until it shines. Virgo's legacy is not built in cathedrals, but in the lives quietly transformed by their presence. They are the invisible architects of better worlds, the quiet current that moves beneath the noise, the sacred spine of civilizations. To walk the Virgo path is to serve a purpose greater than self, yet to never abandon the self in the process. It is to touch every moment with care, to never rush the process of becoming, and to honor the holy in every hidden place. This is the Virgo myth, a life not of perfection, but of sacred participation in the unfolding of something true. A life forged in silence, refined in shadow, and crowned in integrity. The Virgo journey is not only a tale of refinement and sacred service. It is, at its essence, a pilgrimage of discernment in a world drowning in distortion. This sign is not merely analytical or detail-oriented by chance, but because its sole mandate is to separate what is vital from what is vain. In the chaos of modern noise, Virgo is the quiet force that insists on clarity. Yet the deeper, more hidden task is not just to discern fact from fiction in the external world, but to perform this sacred sifting internally, to separate internalized shame from true humility, anxiety from intuition, perfectionism from purpose. Virgo must refine not only what they do, but who they believe they are. This is not a journey for the faint-hearted. It is a warrior's path, fought not with fire and fury, but with the daily courage to examine one's own thoughts, behaviors, and motivations with unwavering honesty. There is an initiatory wisdom hidden in Virgo's connection to Mercury, one often overlooked. While Gemini, Mercury's other sign, rules the spark of curiosity and the speed of exchange, Virgo governs integration. It is not enough for Virgo to know. They must understand, absorb, apply. They are the transmuters of information into wisdom, the alchemists of experience. This makes Virgo the true scholar of the Zodiac, not the one who collects knowledge for its own sake, but the one who bends knowledge toward usefulness, toward healing, toward betterment. The danger lies in forgetting the difference between critical thought and self-critical attack. Virgo must learn that wisdom does not always speak with precision. Sometimes it arrives in stillness, in uncertainty, in the wordless hum of knowing. To make space for this is to become whole, not just sharp, but deep. Virgo also holds a special link to the principle of thresholds, the moments in life where one must cross from one state of being into another. These liminal spaces, though subtle, are powerful. Virgo is the moment between breath and action, the pause before response, the empty bowl waiting to be filled. Within that moment lies infinite potential. Virgo governs these sacred crossings. The first day of a new habit, the decision to forgive, the setting of a boundary, the tender choice to begin again. These transitions may not be dramatic, but they are transformative. They require presence, intention, and patience. Virgo is the gatekeeper of the inner temple, the one who stands at the border between the chaos of instinct and the order of sacred will. In mastering the threshold, Virgo becomes the master of change itself. There is also an ancient connection between Virgo and the archetype of the sacred archivist, one who preserves, catalogs, and protects knowledge, traditions, and stories that may otherwise be forgotten. Virgo does not only analyze, it remembers. It gathers the pieces others dismiss and sees their relevance. Virgo can hold memory across generations, becoming a custodian of cultural and familial heritage. In this role, Virgo is not bound to nostalgia, but charged with contextual relevance, knowing what to carry forward and what to leave behind. There is a danger, however, in over-identifying with the role of the keeper. Virgo may begin to equate stability with safety, resisting change that appears to threaten order. But evolution always disrupts. The Virgo path is to protect what is essential, not what is familiar. To preserve the truth, even when that truth challenges everything they've built. Rarely addressed is Virgo's relationship with power, not in the overt, hierarchical sense, but in the domain of influence. Virgo holds invisible power, often exercised through systems, structures, and habits that shape environments more than authority ever could. This power is quiet but unrelenting. A Virgo doesn't need to dominate a room. They recalibrate it through presence, example, precision. But with such subtle power comes the danger of underestimating one's impact. Virgo may think they go unnoticed, when in truth, their choices echo deeply. The motivational fire here is in recognizing that small actions, repeated with integrity, change the trajectory of lives. Virgo is the proof that real power is not found in titles or control, but in the mastery of process, in consistency, and in the courage to hold a higher standard. Another facet rarely explored is Virgo's relationship to ritual and rhythm. Virgo is not about routine for its own sake. It is about rhythm as a mirror of cosmic order. Virgo, like nature, thrives in cycles. The rising of the sun, the planting of a seed, the waxing of the moon. When Virgo aligns with rhythm rather than rigidity, they become oracles of flow. Their routines are not cages, but vessels. Their rituals are not habits, but altars. The danger is when rhythm calcifies into dogma. Virgo may begin to obey patterns rather than dialogue with them. The work then becomes to listen again, to the changing body, the seasons of the soul, the tides of inspiration. Virgo must remain the gardener, not the warden. Ritual must remain a conversation, not a command. In relationships, Virgo often walks the path of the sacred mirror. They draw to them people who seek betterment, consciously or not. Virgo has a gift for seeing others not only as they are, but as they could become. This is a blessing and a burden. The danger lies in assuming responsibility for another's growth. Virgo may feel it is their duty to heal, fix, or guide. But love, true love, is not corrective, it is spacious. Virgo must learn to stand beside, not over, to reflect, not reshape. In doing so, they empower rather than rescue. And in being loved for who they are, not just what they do, they learn that worth is not earned through effort but revealed in being. There is also the mythic challenge of Virgo's fear of error. At its deepest level, this is not about being wrong, it is about being unworthy. The Virgo soul often wrestles with a hidden sense of needing to prove themselves through flawlessness. Yet the cosmic irony is that the very path to Virgo's highest evolution lies through the embrace of imperfection. Mistakes are not failures in Virgo's journey, they are initiations. They reveal what is real, what must be healed, what is no longer sustainable. To fear error is to fear growth. To welcome it is to become invincible in a way no perfection could ever provide. At the furthest horizon, Virgo becomes the sacred visionary. Not the loud prophet, but the quiet architect of futures yet unborn. Virgo dreams not in fantasies, but in frameworks. They do not escape reality, they redesign it. This makes Virgo a vital force in collective healing and transformation. While others rush toward revolution, Virgo lays the bricks for renaissance. They are the ones who hold the blueprint, who remember that every better world begins with a better plan, a better question, a better habit. The epic of Virgo is one of long arcs, patient revolutions, and enduring grace. And so the Virgo soul walks onward, not in haste, but in holy rhythm. Not seeking praise, but guided by purpose. Not waiting for perfection, but daring to refine, to rework, to rise again. In their hands, the world becomes a little cleaner, a little clearer, a little more sacred. That is no small feat, that is legend. There exists within Virgo an ancient allegiance to silence. Not the absence of speech, but the kind of sacred silence that guards power, that shields truth from dilution. Virgo is the keeper of the unspoken, the unsaid, the truths too refined to survive the clamor of careless mouths. In this silence, Virgo stores vision, wisdom, and an unwavering clarity that others may overlook or dismiss. It is here that Virgo becomes most dangerous, not through dominance, but through knowing. The world often mistakes this for modesty, humility, even insecurity. But silence is Virgo's strategy, its forge, its sanctuary. In that stillness, Virgo is able to see what others cannot, to chart patterns invisible to the distracted, to prepare while others posture. When this silence is internalized without awareness, it can turn against Virgo, becoming repression, hesitation, the quiet suffocation of unexpressed brilliance. Yet when wielded consciously, it is the ultimate sword, sharp, precise, unsparing. Virgo is often associated with the archetype of the healer, yet what remains insufficiently illuminated is Virgo's role as the purifier, not only of the physical, but of the energetic and ethical planes. There is a profound alchemical instinct in Virgo, a drive not only to clean or fix, but to cleanse, to extract the essence of anything corrupted or bloated by excess. This purification is not simply practical. It is mythic. Virgo is the flame that burns away pretense, that reduces inflated forms to their true substance. Virgo enters relationships, projects, and systems with a silent promise that only what is real, necessary, and true will survive. This is a terrifying and transformational gift. Many cannot endure this level of precision because it confronts everything bloated, indulgent, dishonest, or unresolved. And yet, those who can remain in Virgo's presence long enough are themselves refined, clarified not through judgment, but through exposure to an unshakable standard. The Virgo soul is also linked to sacred timing, not the forced urgency of modern life, but the cyclical, organic pulse of natural rhythms. Virgo understands that things ripen according to a deeper order. There is a timing to healing, to growth, to revelation, and Virgo feels this in their bones. The danger comes when this innate connection to timing is overridden by the pressure to produce, to be efficient, to rush toward completion. Virgo must relearn the original rhythm, the one not governed by clocks but by callings. In this rhythm, rest is not laziness, and delays are not failures. Rather, every pause is a recalibration, every return a renewal. The true Virgo does not simply manage time, they steward it. They shape their days into sanctuaries of intention, ensuring that energy is never squandered, only seeded. Beneath Virgo's analytical surface lies a profound mysticism, one not reliant on visions or prophecy, but born from immersion in the real. Virgo finds the divine in the anatomy of the leaf, the sequence of numbers, the careful symmetry of thought. While others seek God in abstraction, Virgo sees the sacred in specificity. This incarnational mysticism grounds spiritual truth in form, rendering it livable. Yet this mysticism is vulnerable to dismissal, even from within. Virgo may distrust their own spiritual experiences, labeling them as impractical, irrational, or indulgent. But here lies a cosmic irony. Virgo is one of the most naturally spiritual signs, precisely because it refuses to escape the world. Its mysticism is not an exit, it is an invitation to embody divinity in the daily. When Virgo remembers this, they become oracles of embodied wisdom, those who not only know the path, but walk it with dignity and devotion. Virgo's emotional life, often misunderstood as reserved or minimal, is in truth deeply complex and intense. It is simply expressed through structure rather than spectacle. Virgo does not cry to be seen. They organize to stay afloat. Their grief is folded into functionality, their longing encoded into plans. But under every list is a dream. Under every system is a desire. Virgo feels profoundly, they simply process differently. And when that emotional intensity is not acknowledged, it can manifest in subtle forms of sabotage. Chronic overextension, perfectionism, hypercriticism, and burnout. Virgo must learn that allowing oneself to feel is not an interruption to order. It is the foundation of true alignment. The emotions Virgo fears will overwhelm them are often the very forces that will reinvigorate them with purpose. Another undercurrent of Virgo's experience is the tension between sacred autonomy and unspoken loneliness. As an archetype, Virgo represents the individual who chooses integrity over belonging, truth over comfort, solitude over compromise. This gives Virgo unmatched strength and self-sufficiency, but it also breeds an ache for connection that matches their depth. They do not seek many, but they yearn for few who are true. Yet the Virgo fear is that to be fully seen is to be misjudged, that the very standards which make them exceptional may also render them unlovable. The lesson here is not to lower their standards, but to trust that there are others who value clarity, care, and depth just as fiercely. Virgo must open, not to everyone, but to those rare companions who speak the language of refinement, the dialect of devotion, the vibration of truth. Virgo's placement between Leo and Libra is no accident. It is the bridge between identity and relationship, between radiance and reflection. Virgo teaches that before you can shine, Leo, or relate, Libra, you must refine. It is the sign of sacred preparation, the forge where raw potential is tempered into tools of transformation. In this, Virgo is the silent architect of greatness, not always seen but always essential. They are the hands behind the masterpiece, the editors behind the epics, the rituals behind the revolution. Without Virgo, no vision can be realized. No beauty can be sustained. No truth can endure without fracturing. To live as Virgo is to walk the edge of devotion and discernment every day. It is to hold the world to a higher standard, not through condemnation, but through constancy. It is to suffer, at times, the burden of being the one who sees too much, cares too deeply, and works too hard. And yet, it is also to carry within you the blueprint of a more beautiful world. A world cleaner, clearer, kinder, wiser. Virgo is not here to be appreciated for what they do, but to awaken others to what can be done when purpose meets precision and care meets courage. Their epic is not written in grand gestures or loud declarations, but in the sacred repetition of 1,000 right actions. Their glory is not found in conquest, but in cultivation. And their power, immense, invisible, immortal, is the steady transformation of the world through the transformation of the self. Virgo walks not to be admired, but to be effective. And in this quiet, persistent walking, they carve paths others will one day follow, paths of integrity, intention, and invincible light.